Good evening. I am Jessica Thomas. I am the licensed clinical social worker, and I am so thankful to be here this evening for MS Views and News. Tonight's program is MS Together. So this is the program that I encourage people to bring their support partners with them, but they don't have to. You can come by yourself, and if you're by yourself, don't feel bad. The majority of people usually are by themselves, but I do encourage you to bring your support partner with you for the MS Together program. I would like to thank Viatris for their sponsorship and their support of tonight's program. I have a slide right now that is an elephant, and it says, let's talk about it. What is your elephant in the room? So I want you to think about this as we're getting into the program this evening is what is your elephant in the room? What is going on in your life? I want you to think about what is your elephant in the room? What is the thing that is kind of going on in your life that's sort of present there that you're thinking about that kind of is just impacting your life maybe in a good way. It could be also an elephant in the room, something that you don't really want to talk about. But I want you to think about it. It's, if you have an elephant in the room or something that you would like to talk about today in terms of like a topic or a theme, like say if you've had trouble explaining your MS recently to someone, or if you've had stress about applying for disability, or if you're stressed, or if you've been noticing some of the seasonal changes that can happen sometimes with mood. Whatever it is, we're going to try to address some of this, and I'm going to take notes as we're I'll either go back to it, or if I can integrate some of it, I will, and then if we have to move it on to a different topic another time, I'll let you know. But like, for example, I just had a topic, aging with MS, and I think that's a great topic to talk about, so we can integrate some of that. We have, and Sarah shared that, and then Barbara shared my challenge with my mobility. I use my mobility walker, but still have difficulty getting around. And so we're going to try to integrate this as much as we can. And so it's a variety, but I want to really meet you guys where you are. We have Linda who says, trying to build a stronger relationship, friendship with my husband. That's a really great, a great thing. I'm writing this down. So, and I might go back to this. Since I have MS too, sometimes I can't multitask quite as well. Although I don't think any of us can truly multitask that well, we just do things differently. And then we have Paula that says, when rain and fall starts to an organ, it affects my body, painful and hurting. So fall equals pain and hurting. So can you kind of help cope with that? Perfect. Okay. So we are going to move to our next slide. And before we get started on the topics that I'm going to talk about today, I want you to list what is one thing that you are grateful for today. I want you to think small. So not the big things, not the Thanksgiving gratitudes, unless that's all that you can reach for. I want you to think of the small little things, and I will give you my gratitude. It's pretty small. So a couple of months ago, I got rid of this planner. I put it up, and I was thinking, I don't need to use this anymore. I don't think I like it. And then I missed it a lot, the functionality of it and how I used it to track things and stuff. And so I ended up finding, I had tucked it away in a drawer and ended up finding it, so I didn't have to replace it. So I'm super excited. My gratitude today. What is something that you're grateful for right now? Christy says, my car. And Linda says, I can slowly get my house ready for my granddaughter to spend the weekend. That should be a lot of fun. Sarah says, an upcoming vacation. Scott says, a very loyal, supportive partner. Paula said, my son, he's a memory caregiver and helps me so much. Tammy says, cooler weather. Maddie says, I'm grateful for a nice day and getting good sleep. Lori says, friends and family that continue to encourage me. Julie said, I'm grateful for the things I can do on my own. Mary Lou says, I'm grateful I can still work. It's important to practice gratitude. And the reason why I do this, when we say that we're grateful for something, and when I read things that we're often grateful for, another person might feel a sense of gratitude just hearing someone else's gratitude. That's why I do that. And it's a good thing to practice. Lena, if it's Line or Lena, let me know. I do not want to mispronounce your name, and I feel like I have maybe before in the past. But she's thankful for mobility while working at school. Barbara says, my daughter who is there for me when I need support. Carol said, my Aquafit class today. Dion says, my supportive husband. Melissa says, my 9-year-old grandson. Diane says, grateful I have family to support me. Debbie says, I'm my 16-year-old grandson. They're going to plant plants to attract butterflies in her plant garden, and being able to drink morning coffee and look at the butterflies. That's such a good plan. And then Marie says her elephant is the uncertainty with aging with MS and the new indication of patients over 60 going off therapy. That's scary. My gratitude is able to be active. So tonight's chat's going to be about caring for yourself, how to care for your support partner, and communicate. And then we're going to weave in some interventions and some discussion around some of these other things that the elephants in the room. And Michelle says, grateful for temperature being under 100 degrees. Yes, I am grateful for that as well. And she said heat is the worst. For some people it is. And then for other people, like our person that lives in Oregon, the rain in the fall actually causes more pain. So but for some of us, we switch, if that makes sense. So we're going to move on to our next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about caring for yourself and what that means. Care for yourself, generally it's a person, I think it's important to think about the small things that you can do. There's big things and then there's small things. Big things may be, attending to your exercise plan. Big things might be eating well. Big things may be journaling or having a bedtime routine, etc. But think also small things. What are small things that you can do to care for yourself? To be mindful of doing the things that you can do. It's also important to think about, it can be very difficult with mentally and emotionally difficult sometimes to have to use durable medical equipment, or to have to see that there's been changes within your mobility. So caring for yourself may even be actually utilizing some of the equipment that you need to utilize to walk safely, to be able to do things, to be independent, etc. So caring for yourself, we're going to kind of build off of this, but we're going to move on to our next slide. And we're going to talk a little bit about stress. I talk about stress a lot because stress impacts so many different layers of our life. It impacts our mood. It can impact how we sleep. We can get a lot of sleep or not enough sleep because of stress, but often we don't get good sleep. It can affect our cognition and how we are able to perform. And I know for me, I don't know if many of you can have cognitive fatigue, but that's something I deal with. And so stress absolutely impacts that. It can impact how you feel, like you might have a backache or a neck ache, etc., muscle tightness. It can impact the way that you interact with other people. And so I like to talk about stress because stress is incredibly important because it influences how we feel. And stress and MS don't go hand in hand, but guess what? Stress is always going to be here. And if you have MS, until they find a cure, MS is here too. And so we've got to find a way to make sure that we're caring for ourselves within a stressful environment. Lena, thank you so much for telling me the way to pronounce your name. It looks like line, and that's why I keep saying that. And I greatly apologize, but Lena, I'm going to remember that now. And so we have a couple people that have shared some self-care techniques, but I'm gonna ask about them in a little bit, in a little bit. So we're gonna move on to the next slide, which is gonna talk a little bit about psychological flexibility, I believe, or maybe not. Like maybe I jumped on that one. So let's go to the next slide. Oh yeah, this is perfect timing. So going to the chat box. How do you take care of yourself? So the reason why I want you to share this is it's good for you to reinforce to yourself what is something that you do to take care of yourself. And if you're someone who has had a really hard day today, I want you to think of something that you can do this evening to take care of yourself. And so I want you to take this question more of like an active assignment, like something that you can do that's small to take care of yourself. And by coming onto this chat, you've already started the process, so thank you. So we have Maria that she one of the things she does is praise. We have Paula, who says that stress caused a relapse, which helped her to get diagnosed. Often we can look back at times where MS symptoms have been very high, and we see that stress was really high. I know that was the case for me. My biggest relapse that I had through my own MS journey, stress was at one of the highest points in my life. We have someone that says yoga poses and being organized. And we have Diane says, Marie said that, Diane says walking every day. We have Linda that says every day I have a morning routine and for that day, and even if I don't leave the house. So that's really like a great plan. And we talk about that with apathy, I know. Sarah says walks. Scott says yoga practice. Dion says exercising first and then minimizing time around negativity. That is so good. Paula says journaling and watching my favorite TV shows. Those are great. Allison says I take exercise classes and take my dog on frequent walks. Barbara says when I arrived home, I make a cup of coffee and I sit down and play with my cat and dog. Lena says, I go to sleep early. I'm with you. I do the same. And Barbara says, this helps me to relax. We have Carol that says, Aquafit and TV. Antoinette says, walking in nature and at the pond. And then okay. And then Michelle's after this meeting, she's going to go to another one. So that is really great. Perfect. And then perfect. So we're going to move on to our next slide. It's really tough. One thing I do want to say is it really is tough to have a hard day and to know what to do with it, right? And there's self-care that we can put in that's kind of reactive, like today's been a bad day, I need to do this and I need to take care of myself. And then there's the proactive stuff that we can do. A lot of people mention some of the proactive things that they do to take care of themselves every day. But it's important to have like some of the things that on those hard days, on those bad days, how can we reset our day? And I'm actually going to give you a tool or resource. I know we talked about gratitude. So I was doing a work program over the weekend, and there was a lady who had created this book. It's called No Joy, The Sadness of Life. And it sounds like a hard topic, I know, but it's actually a cathartic, nice little journaling book. I don't know much about it, and I haven't used it that much, but I think that this might be good for the people that maybe have had an extra challenging day. Is to look at gratitude in two different ways. And you start by being grateful for the things that you don't have. And I kind of like that. So, for example, no illness. Well, we can't mark that. We have MS, so we can't check that one. But maybe it's no illness, like not being, not having a cold or not having the flu, etc. No pain, no homelessness, no thirst, no hunger, no extreme cold, etc. You could probably come up with a list, but I think that's kind of a neat way to look at gratitude, is looking at the things that you don't have, and then looking at the things that you do have, and it starts off with very basic things like home, a bed, food, water, electricity, health, laughter, family, friends. But that's kind of a nice thing to do. And so, and also deep breathing can be incredibly helpful as well. Sarah mentioned that, and I always find that breathing can help us. And what breathing does when we do deep breathing exercises, it calms our parasympathetic nervous system, so our vagus nerve, and it can help to kind of essentially help calm your body. And that can help you to kind of reset to work on whatever it is that you're working on. So psychological flexibility. So we're going to put this a little bit with the aging piece a little bit, not with the aging and the new recommendations for medications, because I can't kind of quite adapt that here. But for psychological flexibility, this is another way to take care of yourself. And I also like to consider this as like acceptance and commitment therapy. It's really a ACT is what it would be called. And for psychological flexibility, there's a couple of steps. So if something is happened, that you allow for yourself to be in the now, because often we can be in the past or be in the future. I'm in the future a lot because I'm planning and I have a lot of work things, and my mind tends to be not so much in the past. I'm in the future a lot, and that's not good. Sometimes we just need to be right here in this moment. And so the first thing for psychological flexibility is that you bring yourself right here. And you become aware of what your thoughts are. And it's important to know that you are not your thoughts. So your thoughts are just that. They are your thoughts, and they are separate. And sometimes we confuse ourselves with our thoughts and want to be kind of aligned with them. But our thoughts are just our thoughts. Our feelings are just our feelings. And so you kind of watch your thinking and explore and really just separate yourself from your thought. And paying attention to how you're feeling. Being very self-aware of it all without judging yourself. And then you think about your values, what matters to you, what's important, and then you commit to your values. So I have a couple of examples for that, so to say. So with, I think about, I am not, when I think about some establishments, some stores and even restaurants that are closed on Sundays, their value is to be closed on Sunday. But they could make a ton more money if they were open every day of the week, right? But they commit to their value. And there's also people, I've actually known people to say, well, you know what, I don't work on Sundays, so I can't take that extra job, or I can't take this, do this extra thing because I don't, actually, I have a really good example. When my son played baseball, he had a teammate that did not, their family did not do play baseball and do things like that on Sundays, and so that was their value and their boundary, and they were able to kind of negotiate that. Now, and sometimes our values can lead to, and really can lead to our behaviors, and they should lead to our behaviors. And so when you're practicing psychological flexibility, you're being very aware of how you feel, but really your values are relating are going to actually drive you to your behaviors, etc. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is these the safety instructions. So this is for a support partner. This is for you if you're living with MS. This is for anyone that is listening. It's so important to know that we have to take care of ourselves before we take care of others. And, we can go to the simple instructions if you've ever flown on a plane, and they talk about, if the oxygen mask comes down to put your mask on before you help others. And I used to think that was the craziest thing because of my mom, and I would want to help my son first. But the truth is, if I didn't do my own mask, I wouldn't be able to help him. We have a couple of tips here from people. Melissa says she removes herself from settings that are stress or stress causing, and that is a really good technique. I think it's good to learn how we can avoid stress when possible. If not, how can we alter it? How can we make small changes? How can we adapt to it? And then how do we kind of accept it too? And then Maria says practicing mindfulness, and mindfulness definitely is a part of that psychological flexibility as well. We'll move on to our next slide. So another tool here is checking your battery. How many of you check your internal battery throughout the day in terms of your energy and your mood? So I think of two batteries. I think of a battery of my physical energy, and I think of battery for my mood. And honestly, if my physical battery is not if it's not doing good, my mood is not going to be doing good. But sometimes if my physical energy is good, my mood could still be kind of okay or lower, but generally if I'm not feeling good physically, my mood is going to be moderate to lower. Linda says, I check in all day long with myself. That is so good. And then Lori says setting boundaries and helps with stress and maintaining her values. Very, very good. Michelle says, I do not have time to check my battery. And I know it can feel that way. So I don't know your circumstances at all, but I like to just try to give yourself 1 minute, a 1 minute body scan real quick. And literally no more than that. And just how am I feeling physically? How am I feeling mentally? And just writing. You don't have to write it down, but just kind of making note of it. I do find that if I don't have to check in with myself, but sometimes if I have a lot going on, then my awareness to do my self-care stuff really does not work out quite as well. Paula says, I pay attention to always listening to their body. Barbara says, this year I'm committing to checking my battery, especially at work. That's a place where I have to check mine actually quite a bit myself. And it's, but I would say committing, like a minute or less to just say, okay, kind of like and you could find a routine, like maybe when you're sitting down to go to the restroom for a moment, you're just thinking, okay, how am I feeling physically? How am I feeling energy-wise, mood-wise, just checking in, or if you're at lunch, or finding some way to build it into a routine. We're going to move on to our next slide. So one of the important questions to ask yourself is, when you're checking in is, what matters to you, what do you need, and how are you feeling? Those are important things. And so when you're doing that self check-in, it's good to know what your next steps are, and asking yourself, okay, well, what matters to me right now, and what do I need? Sometimes they can be hard because your job or your environments that may say you need to do this. This happens to me. There's things I need to do, but I need to do this. And that's kind of hard because they conflict, right? And so it's finding a little bit of balance of what the world is asking of you versus what you need to do, and how you can kind of meet in the middle a little bit. And we can talk about, and there's lots of other strategies and tools that we can talk about, like within the work environment, et cetera. I can't hone in and focus totally on that. But it's important to know kind of what matters to you, what do you need, what resources, et cetera. We're going to move on to our next slide. What is something that you would like to be intentional about? And as we're writing that down, I'm going to visit this psychological flexibility. as a concept again, just for using equipment and dealing with mobility changes. When there's mobility changes, there is an aspect of grief and loss that we have to acknowledge, and that is important, because the truth is that there is a lot of emotion and aspects of loss in general with that. But the psychological flexibility may help you as you are. So it's essentially called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. Could be a helpful tool to use to help to deal with some of the changes that you have in your mobility, and with using some of the durable medical equipment. So I just wanted to mention that and bring that back as a resource. I'm going to go back to Barbara, because she said, this year I'm committing to check my battery, especially at work. I think that's something about being intentional too. Dion says, going to bed earlier to get the rest of my mind and body needs. That is a great intention. Maria says, protecting my self-esteem is what I wish I could always be intentional about. And that's, I think, something that is a great thing to work on. Scott says, deeper intimacy and communication with my partner. That is a great thing. Linda says, walking further on my dog walks. Kania says, oh, hi, Kania. I didn't see you in the beginning. Sometimes I notice that I have no decisions left, so my brain needs rest. So stop instead of continuing to web search. That is a really good technique. The other day, I was able to, I work in a job that's very supportive, and I'm lucky in that way. And I know this, so I want you to know that I know this. But the other day, I was able to email my employer and my team and say, I need to take a break. I need to take a brain break and a body break, because I know what my body needs, and I need to make sure I'm not pushing through this feeling. And they were very supportive. And I found that being intentional about that type of communication and self-care has been very helpful. And then what happened is I went and I rested, and I felt so much better. But had I pushed through, I would have felt really bad the next day. It actually would have been a longer recovery period. Barbara would like to work on setting boundaries and using the word no. I like to say no is a complete sentence. I know it feels ick sometimes to say no. It's hard to say no. Sometimes we're geared to want to say yes, but no is the complete sentence. And sometimes you give yourself freedom by being able to say no. But I love, Kania, like when you notice your brain needs to rest and you just put your phone down, right? Stop just looking. That's a great thing. And Barbara says, I tend to overdo it beyond exhaustion. And I think that many of us, Maria says, I love it that there's a complete sentence. And Dion says, well done, Jessica. Well, thank you. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I'm encouraging you to be able to tell the people that you love and your support partners, and even sometimes your colleagues or your coworkers, that you know that you need to do something to take care of yourself. Because when they can see that, that mitigating that self-care, then they actually get a better version of you. And Melissa says, I want to be more intentional, reflecting on things that I can still do, and not so much on things that I can't. That is a really good awareness. So this book that I shared, it's not written by someone that has MS, but if someone that had MS probably would have written it, it would have had something to that extent. So instead of looking at the things that you can't do, looking at things you can do, it kind of like the gratitude, looking at things you don't have, but looking at the things that you do have to be grateful for. And I think that is a really good way to look at things. So I'm giving you this permission slip. If you know me, you've seen this before. I'm going to continue to give them to you, because I want you to give yourself permission to try to meet the things that you want to be intentional about. We're going to move forward in the next slide, but I wanted just to remind you, over the past weekend, I had a group of people during a presentation write down what they would give themselves permission to do, because if we don't give ourselves permission, often if we write it down, there's increases the chance that we will do it. And so someone asked me real quick, what is the name of the book on gratitude that I mentioned? It's really not a gratitude book, but it's called No Joy. And it's a bilingual book, No Joy, The Sadness of Life. And it's from Gabriella Lorenzo. And I believe you can get it on Amazon. I came across it this weekend, and I thought it was I have not went through all of it, but I do like some of the resources, and it's bilingual. It's English, Spanish. So care for the support partner. We'll move forward. So who is your support partner? So support partners might be our spouses, our parents, our children, our friends, our adult children, other family members, professional caretakers. Really, support partners can be a lot of different people. And so we're going to move on to our next slide, and I'm going to ask you, who are your support partners? Maybe your main ones. And the reason why I'm having you list these out, is as I want to see, what the range is. So I will share. So my support partners can be my colleagues to some degree, because I need them to be supportive in some way. But primarily, it's my husband, I would say, and then a couple of friends here and there. So we have Sarah that says her husband, Linda says her husband, Dion says my husband and children. Sarah says friends, Michelle says her spouse, Paula says my son and my sister and a good friend. Carol said daughter, friend, husbands. So you can see that it can be a range of support partners, can really be a range of different people. I've learned that I have a couple of people that have MS that are in my life, and I'm really lucky for that, and they become a support partner and to some degree as well. So we have some more here. Kania says her housemate. Lena says spouse and coworkers. Barbara says my daughter and some close friends. Carol said adult children. So you can see that there's quite a range. So we have Lisa mentions no one. There might even be someone else on this call today that feels like they don't have anyone. And the reason why I was having like a range of people is to see that sometimes it can be a variety. Sometimes a support partner can be an extension of your medical team sometimes, or someone that just shows that they care a little bit about your disease. And so we have Julie that says my husband, parents, sisters, brothers, and nieces. So some of us have really big networks. I always say that I've known people, and I've been working with MS for a long time and working with people. Some people have support networks that are huge. And mine's pretty small. It's grown through the MS community. But other than that, I said my husband, and my coworkers kind of, but so my support network is kind of small. So it's usually someone that has some care and level of care or concern about your MS and helping you to live well. And that's where a support group can be helpful. Pets can absolutely count. Thank you, Kania, for mentioning that. I have a dog, Bella. She's not allowed to be in this chat with me because she always tries to leave mid-chat, and then it's distracting. But Bella has been in here with me before, and she's really helpful for me. And I sleep better with her, and during the day, etc. So pets are very much can be a support partner. Paula says yes. Her dog Charlie. Antoinette says other people with MS that she's met at MS events. So there you go. So let's move on, and you can continue to chat. Oh, Lisa says, oh yeah, I have a pug, Coconut, and she's her ADHD puppy. I am so glad, Lisa, that we were able to make that connection. Thank you so much, Kania, for mentioning animals, because sometimes we can feel alone and then realize, oh no, we have some support through our animals. Melissa says her adult daughter, son-in-law, sister, best friends, etc. So I'm going to not have you, actually don't do anything in the chat box for this, but I'm going to give you 2 questions, and I want you to sort of think about this. How do you communicate your needs to your support partner? And then go to the next slide, which is going to say, how does your support partner communicate their needs back to you? Well, I know from my animal, from my dog Bella, she definitely communicates her needs. She needs to snuggle and needs attention, and that totally helps me because it helps me feel better to have that. But it's important with our support partners for people that we care about, and really it's any relationship that we have, is how can we communicate how we're feeling, and how can they communicate how they're feeling and what their needs are. And it may not even be about each other, or it might not even be about MS. And so I think that's really important, is that if we have friends that are a support partner, our relationship, is not just MS. So how do we communicate when things are going on in our lives, and how do we know what's going on in their lives? So we're going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about caring for our relationships, because these support partner relationships are relationships, and so how can we be proactive with them? We'll move on to one more slide. That relationships really do require proactive relationship management. So I think that this is a positive thing to think about, is, what are the things that you're doing to foster a good relationship in general? Because relationships really withstand a lot of difficult things. In a relation, often in our relationships, we bring our good, our bad, our ugly experiences in life, and vice versa, that our support partners, our friends, and our relationships should bring the same to us. And what are we doing to cultivate that proactive relationship management? So it's not just about when it's raining, it's pouring. It's about what are you doing to kind of foster a good currency in your relationship and have a good connection, doing things that you enjoy, having moments that are not always stressful, etc. And that's really important to think about. What aspects, what are you doing to build your emotional currency for your relationship? And I think that's really important. We have Diane here that says parents or church members are a part of her support network. So thank you for Diana for sharing that. And so the next question, I think, is a good question to ask. So in terms of your relationship, is there a part of your relationships that get a break from MS? And I'll give you an example. Baseball, for the most part, gets a break from my MS in terms of my relationship with my husband. So watching baseball, MS really is not impacted. When my son plays baseball, sometimes it can be impacted because MS is a part of, my symptoms and stuff in the heat. But is there a part of your relationship and your friendships that get a break from MS? And I think that's important to kind of be mindful about that. MS is going to be something that impacts everybody that you have a relationship with to some degree. And it might be minuscule, like, for example, with my coworkers, just telling them what I needed. They just had an awareness of, but still it impacted them if there was a phone call that came in or something they would have had to pick up and do something for me. But are there areas of your, so every relationship that you have has some little impact of it, probably, but are there parts of it that are MS-free? Deanne says, participating with my friends in a book club. That is really, really awesome. So finding things that you can do that are kind of MS-free for you and your relationship. And when I say that, it's just finding little things. Like, so for my husband and I, it's watching baseball. And yes, I'm so tired sometimes I fall asleep during that. But still, it's that level of intimacy and friendship and doing something we both enjoy. So we're going to move on. We're almost getting close to being done, which this program's went way too fast. We're going to go down. Well, actually, I'll read these real quick. So some ideas: committing to spending quality time together on a regular basis. Even if this is just a friend, so important. Making sure that you're doing things with your friends and you're being intentional. Finding things that you enjoy together. Try something new. Focus on having fun together. These are ways to kind of keep MS out of the limelight, so to say. We'll move on to the next slide. And then tell your partner what you need from them. Don't make them guess. And this is friends too. So if you are missing, conversation with your friends, or for example, there's a friend that or a friend, a former colleague slash friend that I've kind of missed a while, for a good bit. And instead of me just waiting for her to invite me to do something, I asked her if she wanted to go on a walk this weekend. So telling your friend, your person, your support partner, what it is that you need. Don't make them guess. Managing your stress is going to help you manage your relationship. And recognizing what's important to the people in your lives, as well as what is important to you. And as in any relationship, be prepared for ups and downs. So we're going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to just mention, you've got to know what your needs are, because if you don't know what your needs are, someone else is not going to know what they are either. And if we don't make space on, how to communicate what our needs are, how can we expect other people to help us or to know? And then making room to talk about the tough stuff. So, and this is important with our support partners, talking about, the things that MS does touch, cognitive changes or planning for the future, intimacy when relevant, mental health, quality of life, changes in relationship, the what ifs that can cause a lot of fear or discomfort. Talking about fall risks and very practical things as well, using of DME safety, etc. And even if you have a caregiver that's providing, pretty extensive care, talking about respite and the needs for respite. So we're going to move to slide 32, and it's that elephant. Unfortunately, so we'll move forward a couple more times. I kind of went through these slides actually just without even going through them. So we'll go back to the elephant picture, and I have there, what else should we address? And the reason why I put that elephant there is I want to go back to the things that we put real quick and see if there's anything that we can talk about. And if we can't talk about it in depth today, there may be a resource I can share about it. So a couple of things. So I want to go back to the fall and talk about seasonal things as well. That when we're not quite there yet, but when the days are going to get a lot shorter, we do find that sometimes if you have any mood changes or seasonal, or if you have experienced a seasonal affective disorder, that you may see that when the days get shorter and the sunlight is less, that your mood may dip down a little bit more. And I always like to talk about this in September, October, because it's important to mention. And so it's important to think about the things that you can do, which is get out earlier to walk, or spend as much time as you can in the sunlight during the day. Some people have a light therapy lamp, etc. Exercise is very beneficial and very helpful too. And finding the things that you can do that can help you with seasonal affective disorder. Dion also says playing cards with her family, one that would be helpful for the fall, but also that was just a coping mechanism that she shared. And so it's important to know if you're kind of into, I know in the summer, when the summer comes up, I'm anticipating a lot more fatigue, which kind of impacts my mood a little bit. In the fall, I don't anticipate that, because I anticipate that I'll have more energy. And so I know in the summer, I kind of geared towards, okay, well, what are the tools that I can do to put into my life to kind of help me a little bit when I'm going to know that I'm going to experience a little bit more discomfort with my disease. And so for the fall, I just want you to know that there's things that you can do in terms of helping with your mood, and if you're experiencing, and if you are someone that's the opposite of heat, that the damp and the cold is hard for you to find the things that you can do that can help you to kind of refocus on the things that are good, the things that are helpful, and then literally find the tools and the strategies to kind of help you get through that period of time. Very similar to how many of us do with the heat. And so there was something about building a relationship. We've had so much contact on here. I'm having a hard time finding it on the chat, but it sounds like that there was someone who wanted to trying to build a stronger relationship with my husband. And so with that, Linda, I think it's, while we're not going to solve it today, I think that we talked about a couple of things to do, but I thinking about the currency and the things that you're investing in, and of course MS not being as big of a part of it. And then Sarah, you mentioned aging with MS, and I wanted to bring attention one more time to that Aging with MS program that we did with MS Views and News, because that is a really important one. And dealing with decreased mobility. Again, we talked a little bit about loss and grief, and we will continue to do that here at the MS Mental Wellness Chat. We're going to move on to our next slide. Viatris, we are so thankful for their support for the program and for MS Views and News. And this last slide that will come up is a map, and I always say this is the consistent slide. It's of North Carolina, so it's where I live and where some of the participants live around here too. But I like to say not goodbye. We will see you later, and you know that I will be here next month, and I look forward to seeing you all, and I wish you a wonderful evening.